So your man has asked you for space, and now you're trying to figure out what is the next thing that you should be doing. The two key things that you need to take away is, number one, don't panic. And number two, to use this time that you now have strategically. And so today we're going to talk about, don't get weird about your man asking space. Do this. And today I have 5 tips that I'm going to give you in order for you to give him space with grace. But before I actually do that, I have some research numbers here that I want to read to you, coming from Ipsos Mori, and I will definitely put that name up there because I really don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Anywho, 48% of men from 4 countries, they surveyed the UK, Canada, Australia, as well as the US. 48% of men from those countries describe masculinity in terms of being strong. 32% of men from the same 4 countries feel pressure to be masculine. And then 58% of the same men from those 4 countries believe that society expects them to be emotionally strong and show no weakness. So he may need space because he doesn't want to show you that he is weak. And I'm doing air quotes because when you show up and show your vulnerability, it actually means that you are stronger than you're giving yourself credit for. So now, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the 5 tips that I have for you here today on how to give him space with grace. The first one is to ask questions. The reason why you want to ask questions is because later on, when you are out of his presence, you're going to start writing the story that you believe is actually true. Well, he's trying to break up with me, or he wants a divorce from me. He doesn't love me anymore. Whatever the story is that you're going to make up later on, you don't want to do that to yourself. And so you're asking questions not only to understand what's actually happening, it's also to help you later on so you don't write your own story, your own narrative, because you failed to get and gather information. So ask initial questions initially to get a better understanding of why he needs the space. And then you have to back off of the probing questions because he needs space. He doesn't want to talk about and go down a rabbit hole of expending all of this vulnerability and energy to you in this moment. Give him the space. The second thing is actually to listen what he's telling you. He's asking for space. He's asking for a reason. And so what you want to do when you're listening to him is really try to connect with his emotional side. As I just mentioned before, 58% of men think that society believes that they should always be strong and not show any emotional side to themselves. Even though we know that that's not true, that's what a lot of men believe. So with that being said, you have to listen to what he's saying, try to connect with that emotional side. But the point is to listen to why he's asking for space. And or if he doesn't have an answer, you just have to listen to him asking for the space and then be ready to give him the space that he's asking for. And all of these things helps you to understand what's actually going on with him. But again, he may not be able to articulate it in that moment. The third reason why your man may be asking for space is literally he cannot prioritize you in this moment. Listen, I know that this one could be a little like, really? What? Because I need to be the priority. But let's be real. Sometimes things come up in life where you cannot make anybody else a priority because of the situation or circumstances that is going on in your life right now in this moment. And so maybe your man, especially if you're not married, and or living under the same roof, you may not get privy to all of the things, all of the details that come his way day in and day out. And let's be real, sometimes even when you're living with the person, regardless of marriage or not, they may not be able to share every intricate detail and or situation that's going on in their life because of a plethora of reasons. We're not going to go down that. That's a different video all together. So he may not be able to prioritize you, and it's okay for him to say that. You would rather know why he cannot prioritize you in this moment, in this season, in this life, than again walking away and now you're writing the story about the things that you believe is actually true because you failed to have an adult conversation. We have to grow up. We have to have adult conversations. We cannot always blame the other person or always feel like life is not going your way because of X, Y, and Z. Sometimes life is not going to go your way because life be lifing. Life be lifing. And each and every one of us is going to have to deal with this in our relationship, in our marriages, even with ourselves. Something is going to happen that is going to throw a curveball into your life. Now, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to panic? Right? Or are you actually going to come up with a game plan in order for you to get back on track? In this case, in order for you and your guy to get back on track, by you just simply listen to what he's saying. In this case, he's asking for space, and then you actually giving him the space to do what he needs to do in this time frame. Which brings me to point number 4. When you give him this space, give it to him with grace. No resentment, no anger, no making him feel guilty about the time that he is asking away from you. It may be him having to figure out if he wants to move to the next level with you. Yes, that conversation could be going on with his head, inside of his head, and he needs to take the time in order to figure out if he wants to be with you any longer. Absolutely. But it may not have anything to do with you. And so he cannot expend and or give you the time, energy, or attention that he knows that you need. He just can't give it to you right now. You cannot be the priority in his life in this season. That's okay, because it's going to happen even when you get married. Maybe it's a different situation, but at some point when you get in a relationship, and especially if it's long term and definitely a marriage, your partner will not be able to prioritize you. And so if you can handle this with grace now, then you definitely will be able to handle it with grace when it absolutely happens at some point in your marriage, because life be lifing. The 5th and final thing to take into consideration when your man is asking for space is to come up with a date to reconnect. This is one of the things where people get it wrong. They just go off into la la land and they never come up with a date to reconnect. Now, if your man is trying to figure out if he wants to go to the next level with you, then you still need to come up with a date so you two can actually part ways if that's the way that it's going to go, or you can figure out what the next step is for you two to move forward in your relationship. But if it's something completely different, you still want to give him space to do what he needs to do, but then say, hey, on X amount of date, do we agree that we can actually come back together on this date and actually continue with the relationship and or whatever the solution is that is happening with us in this moment? The point is, come up with a date to reconnect. Giving space does not mean that you're never going to speak to the person. Although, if that is something that the two of you agree on, then it could work for the two of you. But most people, when they say space, it doesn't mean that they want to cut you off at the hip and not hear from you at all. However, it could be that, and you still have to be able to respect what he's asking. Again, that comes from the listening portion of it. If he needs space, and that means space with no contact from you, you have to honor that. You have to honor that and not make it about you. It's about the person that's asking for it. In this case, your man is asking for space, so give it to him. Go off and prioritize yourself. Get back into the goals and aspirations that you have been trying to achieve that maybe you put by the wayside. Connect with the people, your loved ones and your friends that maybe you put off on the wayside for whatever reason. Reconnect with them. Reconnect with you. And since you made it this far, let me go ahead and give you a bonus. The bonus is, don't worry about things not working out, because here's the thing. If this man is for you and he is destined to be a part of your life, then he will be a part of your life no matter what. So allow him the space that he's asking for. Give it to him with grace, with no shame, with no guilt, no making him feel bad about asking for the space. Because the truth of the matter is, this is how long-term marriages and relationships actually stand this test of time, because not only are you giving him what he's asking for, you're listening, you're connecting with his heart, and you're allowing him to be himself with you. And isn't that something that all of us want? We all want to be heard, understood, appreciated, respected. And that is what you're doing when you give your man space with grace. I love you guys, and there's nothing that you can do about it. And I'll see you again. Deuces, y'all.